I had to look twice because these cars didn't seem real. Their designs were so weird, so unusual, and so unbelievable that I couldn't believe my eyes. Here are 7 of the weirdest cars ever created.
The first time I saw the 1948 Sir Vival, I honestly thought it had to be a joke. It didn't look like a car. It looked like someone had combined a tractor, a tank, and a science fiction machine into one bizarre vehicle. The driver's seat sat inside a tall glass tower high above the road. The engine was completely separated from the passenger compartment. The front wheels were mounted on an unusual pivoting section that looked more like farm equipment than an automobile. From almost every angle, the Sir Vival seemed impossible. Even today, many people assume the photos are fake or digitally edited. But the unbelievable truth is this: the Sir Vival was completely real. It wasn't built for a movie. It wasn't created as a joke. It was one man's serious attempt to build the safest car in America. The late 1940s were a dangerous time for drivers. Automobiles were becoming faster every year. Highways were expanding. Traffic was increasing. Yet safety technology was still in its infancy. Seatbelts were almost unheard of. Crumple zones didn't exist. Airbags were decades away. Thousands of people died in crashes every year, yet most manufacturers focused on styling and horsepower rather than protecting passengers. One engineer believed that had to change. His name was Walter C. Jerome, and he was convinced that cars needed to be redesigned from the ground up, not to look better, not to go faster, but to save lives. The result became one of the strangest automobiles ever created. The first feature everyone noticed was the driver's position. Instead of sitting behind the engine like in a normal car, the driver occupied a raised glass observation tower placed above the passenger compartment. From this elevated position, visibility was dramatically improved. Jerome believed that if drivers could see farther down the road, they would have more time to avoid accidents. It looked bizarre, almost like the control tower of an airport sitting on top of a car, but behind the strange appearance was a serious safety idea. Then there was the engine. On almost every automobile, the engine sits directly in front of the passengers. Jerome believed that was dangerous, so he separated the engine from the passenger compartment using a long front section designed to absorb impact during a collision. His theory was simple. If the engine stayed farther away from the occupants, it would be less likely to crush them in a serious accident. Today, modern cars use engineered crumple zones based on a similar philosophy, but in 1948, the idea was considered radical. Perhaps the most unusual feature was the front suspension. Instead of a traditional front end, the Sir Vival used a separate pivoting front section that allowed the wheels and engine to move somewhat independently from the passenger cabin. Jerome believed this design could help reduce the force transferred to occupants during certain types of crashes. To most people, however, it simply looked strange. The front resembled a tractor more than a passenger car. Many observers couldn't even understand what they were looking at. The body itself ignored nearly every styling trend of the era. While American manufacturers were adding chrome, rounded fenders, and elegant curves, the Sir Vival looked purely functional. Everything was designed around safety rather than appearance. The roof was unusually tall because of the observation tower. The front stretched far ahead of the cabin. The proportions looked awkward. It wasn't designed to win beauty contests. It was designed to protect human lives. Inside, the Sir Vival continued that philosophy. The seating arrangement emphasized passenger protection. The cabin was isolated from the engine compartment. Jerome even proposed ideas for improved visibility and safer interior layouts long before such concepts became common in the automotive industry. Many of his ideas seemed unbelievable at the time. Today, some of them feel surprisingly familiar. Unfortunately, convincing people proved almost impossible. The Sir Vival was expensive to build. Its appearance shocked nearly everyone who saw it. automakers showed little interest in adopting such a radical design. Buyers preferred stylish cars with chrome and powerful V8s. Very few people wanted to drive something that looked like an experimental machine from another planet. As a result, the Survival never entered production. Only a prototype was completed. Although the project failed commercially, its message did not disappear. Over the following decades, the automotive industry gradually embraced many of the same ideas Jerome had championed. Manufacturers began developing stronger passenger compartments, improved crash protection, better visibility, energy-absorbing front structures. Modern cars may look completely different from the Survival, but the goal is remarkably similar: protect the people inside. Today, the 1948 Survival is remembered as one of the strangest automobiles ever built. Yet beneath its bizarre appearance was a surprisingly intelligent vision of the future. It wasn't trying to be beautiful. It wasn't trying to be fast. It was trying to solve one of the biggest problems facing drivers. And in many ways, it was simply decades ahead of its time. Looking back, the 1948 Survival wasn't a joke. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was one engineer's bold attempt to reinvent the automobile around safety instead of style. A car with a glass observation tower, a separated engine compartment, a tractor-like front end, and ideas that seemed ridiculous in 1948 but helped predict the future of automotive safety. The Survival may be one of the strangest vehicles America ever built, but it also remains one of the most fascinating.
Number 2. 1932 Burney Streamline. When I first discovered the 1932 Burney Streamline, I honestly couldn't believe it had been built in the early 1930s. Because absolutely nothing about this car looked normal. The smooth, rounded body, the hidden wheels, the unusually tall cabin, the engine mounted in the rear. Everything about it seemed completely out of place for its time. If someone told me it was an experimental concept from the 1950s or even the 1960s, I probably would have believed them. But the unbelievable truth is this. The Burney Streamline appeared when most automobiles still looked like horse carriages with engines. It wasn't just ahead of its time, it was decades ahead. The early 1930s were a very different era for automobiles. Most cars had upright grilles, large exposed fenders, running boards, and separate headlights mounted outside the body. Designers weren't thinking much about aerodynamics. The focus was simply building reliable transportation. But one British engineer believed the future would look completely different. His name was Sir Charles Denniston Burney, an aviation pioneer who had spent years designing advanced aircraft and airships. Burney believed the same aerodynamic principles that helped airplanes move through the sky could completely transform automobiles. Instead of copying traditional cars, he started with a blank sheet of paper. The result became one of the strangest and most advanced cars of its generation. The first thing people noticed was its shape. Unlike the boxy automobiles surrounding it, the Burney Streamline had smooth curves flowing from front to back. There were almost no sharp edges. The body looked like a single continuous shell. Even more unusual, the wheels were tucked neatly inside the bodywork, reducing drag and giving the car an incredibly clean appearance. At a time when exposed wheels were standard, this design looked almost unbelievable. Many people compared it to a bus, an airplane fuselage, or even a giant teardrop rolling down the road. The biggest engineering surprise was hidden beneath the body. Instead of placing the engine in the front like almost every other automobile of the era, Burney mounted it in the rear. Today, rear-engine cars like the Volkswagen Beetle or Porsche 911 are well known, but in the early 1930s, this idea was almost unheard of.
Moving the engine to the back created more passenger space, improved weight distribution, and allowed the front of the car to become smoother and more aerodynamic. It was an idea that wouldn't become popular until decades later. The passenger compartment was equally revolutionary. Rather than forcing occupants into a narrow cabin, the Streamline offered an unusually spacious interior with excellent visibility. Large windows surrounded the passengers, making the cabin feel open and airy. Burney believed automobiles should be comfortable for long-distance travel, almost like luxury railway coaches. Instead of designing around the engine, he designed around the people inside. That philosophy feels surprisingly modern even today. Aerodynamics were at the heart of everything. During the early 1930s, very few manufacturers cared about airflow. Burney did. Every curve of the body was carefully shaped to reduce air resistance. The rounded nose, smooth sides, tapered rear, and enclosed wheels all served a purpose. This wasn't styling for the sake of appearance, it was engineering. The Burney Streamline looked futuristic because it was designed according to scientific principles rather than fashion. Despite its remarkable ideas, the public wasn't ready. Most buyers preferred cars that looked familiar. The Burney Streamline was simply too different. Some people admired its innovation. Others thought it was awkward, oversized, or even strange. The unconventional appearance made it difficult to convince customers that this was the automobile of tomorrow. Sometimes being too far ahead of your time can be just as challenging as being behind it. Production remained extremely limited. Only a handful of Burney Streamlines were ever built. Without strong sales, the project gradually disappeared. Many examples were eventually lost, leaving only a few survivors to remind us just how ambitious the design had been. Today, seeing one in person is an extraordinary event. Even dedicated classic car enthusiasts may go their entire lives without encountering one. What makes the Burney Streamline so fascinating is how many of its ideas eventually became normal. Aerodynamic bodies, rear-mounted engines, passenger-focused interiors, integrated bodywork, smooth, flowing shapes. These concepts would later influence automobile design around the world. Burney simply introduced them long before the industry was ready to accept them. Looking back, the 1932 Burney Streamline wasn't just another unusual automobile, it was a glimpse into the future. A car that ignored the rules of its time and followed the science of tomorrow. Its smooth body hid the wheels, its engine sat in the rear, its aerodynamic shape looked like it had arrived from another generation. The Burney Streamline wasn't strange because its designers lacked imagination. It was strange because they had far too much of it. More than 90 years later, it still looks like a vehicle that somehow traveled back in time from the future.
Number 3. 1951 Hoffman. When I first discovered the 1951 Hoffman, I honestly thought it was a miniature display car built for a carnival or an amusement park. It looked far too small to be a real automobile. The tiny body, the unusually narrow proportions, the little wheels tucked beneath its rounded shape. From a distance, it almost looked like a child's toy that had somehow escaped onto a public road. Even today, many people who see photographs of the Hoffman for the first time assume it must be a movie prop, a promotional vehicle, or some kind of novelty attraction. But the unbelievable truth is this: the 1951 Hoffman was built as a completely serious, everyday automobile. Its designers weren't trying to make people laugh. They genuinely believed this tiny machine could become practical transportation for ordinary families. The early 1950s were a time of rebuilding across Europe. World War II had left many countries struggling with damaged industries, limited resources, and fuel shortages.
For millions of people, buying a large luxury automobile was simply impossible. What they needed was something affordable, something economical, something simple enough to own and maintain without spending a fortune. That demand gave rise to a whole generation of tiny microcars. Manufacturers competed to build the smallest, lightest, and most fuel-efficient vehicles possible. The Hoffman became one of the strangest examples of that movement. At first glance, its proportions seemed almost impossible. The body appeared unusually tall compared to its length. The cabin looked squeezed into a tiny footprint. The wheels seemed almost too small for the body. Everything about the design challenged what people expected an automobile to look like. Park it beside a normal sedan from the same era, and the difference is almost comical. The Hoffman looked like someone had accidentally shrunk a full-size car in the washing machine. Despite its tiny size, the engineers tried to make every inch count. The compact body was carefully arranged to provide enough room for everyday driving while keeping weight to an absolute minimum. Because the vehicle was so light, it required only a small engine to move efficiently. Fuel consumption was extremely low compared with larger automobiles of the day, making it attractive to buyers who wanted inexpensive transportation. The philosophy was simple: why carry around more metal than you actually need? The styling reflected practicality rather than beauty. Rounded panels were easier and cheaper to manufacture. The upright seating position helped maximize interior space. The short wheelbase made the car surprisingly maneuverable in crowded streets. In busy cities with narrow roads and limited parking, the Hoffman offered advantages that much larger cars simply couldn't match. It wasn't designed for luxury, it was designed to solve everyday transportation problems. Inside, simplicity ruled everything. There were no unnecessary luxury features, no complicated technology, no expensive trim. The dashboard was basic, the controls were straightforward. Every component served a purpose. Owners appreciated the fact that maintenance was relatively simple and repairs were inexpensive. In an era when many families counted every dollar, that mattered far more than fancy styling. Of course, not everyone was impressed. Many people laughed at the Hoffman's appearance. Some compared it to a toy. Others joked that it looked more like a carnival ride than a real automobile. Its unusual proportions made it an easy target for criticism. Yet those who actually owned one often praised its economy, practicality, and ease of use. It proved that a car didn't need to be large to perform its job. Unfortunately, like many small post-war manufacturers, Hoffman struggled against much larger competitors. As Europe's economy improved, buyers began wanting bigger, faster, and more comfortable automobiles. Microcars gradually lost their appeal. Production remained limited, and many examples disappeared over the following decades. Because these tiny vehicles were often inexpensive, few people thought to preserve them. Many were simply driven until they wore out and eventually were scrapped. Today, surviving Hoffman automobiles are exceptionally rare. When one appears at a classic car show, it usually attracts a crowd, not because of its speed or luxury, but because people can hardly believe such a tiny machine was once considered practical family transportation. Children often smile at its size, adults stare at it in disbelief, and almost everyone asks the same question: is that really a real car? Looking back, the 1951 Hoffman represents an era when creativity mattered more than convention. Engineers weren't trying to build the biggest or fastest automobile, they were trying to build the smartest one for a world recovering from hardship. Its tiny dimensions, unusual proportions, and economical design reflected the challenges of its time. The 1951 Hoffman wasn't strange because it failed. It was strange because it solved problems in a way few others dared to try. A car so small that many mistake it for a toy. A machine that looked more at home in an amusement park than on a highway.
Yet beneath its charming appearance was a genuine, everyday automobile built with serious purpose and remarkable ingenuity. More than 70 years later, it remains one of the most unusual and unforgettable little cars ever created.
Number 4. 1946 Scootacar. When I first discovered the 1946 Scootacar, I honestly thought someone had taken a household appliance, added wheels, and somehow turned it into a real automobile. Because nothing about this tiny machine looked normal. The tall, upright body, the narrow cabin, the tiny wheels, the boxy shape. At first glance, it looked less like a car and more like a refrigerator that had escaped from a kitchen and somehow ended up on the road. Even today, many people cannot believe this strange little vehicle was actually designed for everyday transportation. But the unbelievable truth is this: the Scootacar was a real production automobile. It was built for real drivers. It traveled on public roads, and thousands of people considered it a practical solution during a time when affordable transportation was desperately needed. The years immediately after World War II were challenging for many countries. Factories were rebuilding, materials were limited, fuel was expensive. Many families couldn't afford large automobiles. Manufacturers began searching for a different answer: small cars that used fewer resources and cost less to operate. This created the rise of the microcar. These tiny vehicles focused on one thing above everything else: getting people from one place to another as cheaply and efficiently as possible. The Scootacar was one of the most unusual examples of this movement. The story of the Scootacar began in Britain, where compact transportation became increasingly popular after the war. Many people needed an inexpensive vehicle for commuting and daily errands. A large family sedan was unnecessary for someone traveling alone or with one passenger. The idea behind the Scootacar was simple: create something smaller than a normal car, but more practical than a motorcycle. It was meant to combine the weather protection of an automobile with the low running costs of a scooter, hence the name Scootacar. The design was unlike almost anything else on the road. Instead of a long hood and traditional engine compartment, the Scootacar had a tall, narrow body that looked almost like a small cabin placed on wheels. The driver sat high inside the vehicle. The windshield was almost vertical. The roof extended upward like a small box. Compared with normal cars of the 1940s, it looked completely out of place. Parked next to a full-size sedan, the difference was almost unbelievable. It looked like a giant toy. The unusual shape actually served a purpose. The upright design allowed engineers to maximize interior space while keeping the vehicle extremely compact. Because the car was so narrow, it could easily fit through tight city streets and squeeze into parking spaces where larger vehicles struggled. For crowded urban environments, the tiny footprint was a major advantage. It wasn't designed for speed or style, it was designed for efficiency. Inside, the Scootacar was extremely simple. There was no luxury, no unnecessary decoration, no complicated technology. The cabin was focused entirely on basic transportation. The driver sat in a compact space surrounded by simple controls. Everything about the vehicle reflected the reality of the post-war economy. People didn't need expensive features. They needed something affordable that would start every morning and get them to work. Power came from a very small engine, which was enough because the Scootacar itself was incredibly lightweight. It wasn't built to compete with sports cars. It wasn't built for long-distance highway travel. Its mission was everyday urban mobility, short trips, daily commuting, basic transportation. In that role, the tiny machine made sense. Of course, the appearance was impossible to ignore. Many people found it strange. Some thought it looked awkward. Others joked that it resembled a refrigerator, a phone booth, or a small delivery box with wheels. Compared with the elegant automobiles of the era, the Scootacar looked almost ridiculous. But its unusual appearance was also part of its charm. It represented a completely different way of thinking about transportation. Unfortunately, as economies improved, people's expectations changed. By the 1950s, buyers increasingly wanted larger cars with more comfort, more power, and more style. The tiny microcar market began shrinking. Vehicles like the Scootacar became less desirable as customers moved toward conventional automobiles. Production numbers remained limited, and many examples eventually disappeared. Today, surviving Scootacars are incredibly rare. Most were not preserved because they were inexpensive everyday vehicles, not valuable collector cars at the time. Many were simply used until they wore out. That makes surviving examples fascinating pieces of automotive history. When one appears at a classic car event, people often gather around it just to understand how something so unusual could have existed. Looking back, the 1946 Scootacar was not created because engineers didn't know how to build a normal car. It was created because the world needed a different kind of vehicle, a machine focused on economy instead of luxury, efficiency instead of performance, practicality instead of appearance. The Scootacar may have looked like a refrigerator on wheels, but behind that strange design was a clever idea, a tiny automobile built for a world that needed affordable mobility. It was small, it was unusual, it was almost unbelievable, but it was absolutely real. And that's exactly why the 1946 Scootacar remains one of the strangest little cars ever to travel on public roads.
Number 5. 1966 OSI Silver Fox. When I first discovered the 1966 OSI Silver Fox, I honestly couldn't believe this was a real automobile. Because it looked less like a production car and more like an experiment that escaped from a secret engineering laboratory. The incredibly smooth body, the completely covered rear wheels, the strange four-wheel steering system, the futuristic cockpit-like shape. Everything about the Silver Fox seemed designed for a world where normal cars no longer existed. If someone told me it was a prototype created for a science fiction movie, I would have believed them. But the unbelievable truth is, the OSI Silver Fox was a real working automobile built in the 1960s. It wasn't a fantasy model, it wasn't a movie prop. It was an ambitious attempt to create the most aerodynamic sports car possible. The 1960s were a golden age of automotive experimentation. Engineers around the world were searching for the future. Some focused on bigger engines and more horsepower. Others looked toward aerodynamics, lightweight construction, and advanced technology. The space race inspired designers to create vehicles that looked like they came from another planet. Companies were asking a simple question: what will cars look like in the future? The Italian company OSI decided to explore that question with a machine unlike anything else. The result was the Silver Fox. The first thing that shocked people was the body design. Almost every surface was created with aerodynamics in mind. Instead of traditional exposed wheels, the rear wheels were completely covered by the bodywork. This reduced air resistance and gave the car a smoother, more futuristic appearance. At the time, this was extremely unusual. Most sports cars proudly displayed their wheels and mechanical components. The Silver Fox hid everything beneath a sleek aerodynamic shell. From the side, the car looked almost like a land speed record machine. The long, low body seemed stretched toward the horizon. The cabin sat deep inside the streamlined shape. The rear section flowed smoothly downward, creating a shape that looked more like an aircraft fuselage than a traditional automobile. It wasn't designed to look aggressive, it was designed to slice through the air. Every curve had a purpose. The most unbelievable feature was the steering system. The Silver Fox featured 4 steering wheels. Yes, 4. Instead of using a normal steering arrangement, engineers experimented with a unique system where all 4 wheels could contribute to changing direction. The idea was to improve stability, especially at higher speeds.
Today, four-wheel steering exists on some modern performance and luxury vehicles, but in the 1960s, the concept was extremely advanced. The Silver Fox was exploring technology that would not become common until decades later. Underneath the futuristic body was a much more familiar foundation. The Silver Fox used mechanical components from the OSI 1600 GT, giving it real sports car capability rather than just being a design exercise. This was important because many concept cars only looked impressive. The Silver Fox was created as a functioning machine. It was meant to demonstrate what future performance cars could become. The interior continued the aircraft-inspired theme. The driver sat in a cockpit-like environment, surrounded by unusual shapes and futuristic details. Everything focused on the feeling of controlling a high-speed machine. It didn't feel like a normal road car. It felt like a vehicle created for the next generation of transportation. Despite its incredible design, the Silver Fox never became a production model. Its advanced technology was expensive, its unusual appearance was too radical for most buyers, and the market was moving in a different direction. During the 1960s, customers were becoming obsessed with powerful muscle cars, aggressive styling, and large V8 engines. A futuristic aerodynamic machine with covered wheels was simply too different. Only a very small number of examples were built, making the OSI Silver Fox one of the rarest Italian concept cars of its era. For many years, it remained almost forgotten. Unlike famous concepts from Ferrari, Lamborghini, or Alfa Romeo, the Silver Fox disappeared from popular automotive history. But among serious enthusiasts, it became a fascinating hidden gem. What makes the 1966 OSI Silver Fox so interesting is how modern some of its ideas feel. Covered wheels, aerodynamic efficiency, four-wheel steering, driver-focused cockpit design. These concepts would appear again in many advanced vehicles decades later. The Silver Fox wasn't just trying to look futuristic, it was exploring real engineering solutions. Looking back, the 1966 OSI Silver Fox wasn't a failure because it was strange. It was strange because it was too experimental. It was a car designed around science, airflow, and imagination rather than traditional styling. A machine that looked like it rolled out of a wind tunnel. A vehicle with 4 steering wheels, hidden rear wheels, and a body unlike anything else on the road. The OSI Silver Fox wasn't simply ahead of its time, it was a glimpse of a future that never arrived.
Number 6. 1959 Zundapp Janus. When I first discovered the 1959 Zundapp Janus, I honestly thought I was looking at a strange movie prop created for a science fiction film, because nothing about this little car followed normal automotive rules. One door in the front, one door in the rear, passengers sitting face to face in opposite directions, a tiny body that looked almost like it was designed backward. It seemed less like a real automobile and more like a futuristic transportation capsule imagined by a movie director. Even today, many people see a photo of the Zundapp Janus and immediately ask, was this actually a real car? The unbelievable answer is yes. The Zundapp Janus was a real production automobile built in Germany, and its strange design was not an accident. It was an attempt to create a practical, affordable vehicle for a changing world. The late 1950s were an interesting time in Europe. After World War II, many countries were rebuilding their economies. People needed affordable transportation, but traditional automobiles were often too expensive. This created the rise of the microcar. Small manufacturers began creating tiny vehicles that used very little fuel, required fewer materials, and could be produced at lower costs. Cars like the Messerschmitt, BMW Isetta, and Heinkel Cabine became symbols of this era. But Zundapp wanted to create something different. Instead of copying existing designs, the company decided to completely rethink how a small car should be arranged.
The result was one of the strangest automobiles ever produced. The story of the Janus began with an unusual idea. Zundapp wanted a vehicle that could carry 4 people while remaining extremely compact. A normal 4-seat layout required a longer body. A longer body meant higher costs, more weight, and more fuel consumption. So engineers searched for another solution. Their answer was a design where passengers sat back to back. The front passengers faced forward, the rear passengers faced backward. It sounds strange today, and it looked even stranger on the road. The name Janus was actually inspired by Roman mythology. Janus was the two-faced Roman god who looked in opposite directions. The name perfectly described the vehicle's most unusual feature. The car literally had 2 personalities. From the front, it looked like one small automobile. From the rear, it looked almost identical. Because both ends had doors and similar styling, people often couldn't tell which side was the front. The front and rear doors were among the most unusual parts of the design. Instead of traditional side doors, passengers entered through large doors located at opposite ends of the vehicle. The front door allowed access to the front seats. The rear door allowed access to the backward-facing rear seats. It created a unique cabin arrangement unlike anything else on the market. For a small city car, the design was surprisingly practical, but visually it was unforgettable. The interior was extremely compact but cleverly arranged. The driver sat in the front with a passenger beside them. Behind them sat 2 additional passengers facing the opposite direction. The layout allowed 4 people to fit inside a very small vehicle. For crowded European cities, this was a clever solution. Parking was easy, fuel consumption was low, maintenance was simple. The Janus was built around efficiency. Power came from a small 2-cylinder engine mounted in the center of the vehicle. This unusual placement helped balance the car and allowed engineers to create the unique front and rear door design. The Janus was never meant to be a performance machine. It was designed for affordable everyday transportation. Its mission was simple: move people cheaply and reliably. Unfortunately, the strange design became its biggest weakness. While some people appreciated the creativity, many buyers found the concept too unusual. A car was not just transportation, it was also a status symbol. Many customers wanted something that looked like a real car. The Janus looked like something from another world, and for many buyers, that was difficult to accept. Production lasted for a short time. Zundapp had hoped the Janus would become a successful microcar, but sales were disappointing. The company eventually left automobile production and returned its focus to motorcycles and other products. Only a limited number of Janus cars were built. Many disappeared over the years because inexpensive microcars were rarely saved by collectors. Today, the 1959 Zundapp Janus is one of the most fascinating microcars ever created. When one appears at a classic car event, it immediately attracts attention. People walk around it trying to understand how it works. They look at the front, they look at the rear, they wonder where the engine is. They ask the same question: who thought this was a good idea? And the answer is simple: engineers who were trying to solve a real problem in a creative way. Looking back, the Zundapp Janus wasn't strange because its designers lacked imagination. It was strange because they had a completely different vision of what a car could be. A vehicle with 2 front-looking ends, a cabin where passengers faced opposite directions, a design inspired by a 2-faced Roman god. The 1959 Zundapp Janus may look like a movie prop, but it was a real automobile built for real people. And that's exactly why it remains one of the weirdest and most unforgettable cars ever created.
Number 7. 1962 Peel 50. When I first discovered the 1962 Peel 50, I honestly thought it had to be a toy, because there was no way something this tiny could actually be a real automobile. It looked like someone had taken a full-sized car, shrunk it down, and accidentally left out most of the body.
The tiny single-seat cabin, the 3 wheels, the miniature headlights, the suitcase-sized body. It looked more like a piece of luggage with an engine attached than a vehicle designed for the road. Even today, many people cannot believe the Peel 50 was a real production car. But the unbelievable truth is this: the Peel 50 was completely real. It was officially built as a road-going automobile. It could carry a driver. And it became famous for one incredible feature. You could literally pick it up and move it by hand. The early 1960s were a fascinating time for small cars. Cities were becoming more crowded, parking spaces were becoming harder to find, fuel economy was becoming increasingly important. Manufacturers around the world were searching for new transportation solutions. Some companies built compact economy cars. Others created tiny microcars designed specifically for urban environments. But the British company Peel Engineering decided to go further than anyone else. Instead of building a small car, they built what many consider the smallest production car ever created. The idea behind the Peel 50 was extremely simple. Create the smallest possible vehicle that could still perform the basic job of transportation. The car was designed for one person, not a family, not long road trips, just one driver moving through crowded city streets. It sacrificed almost everything that traditional cars offered. No extra space, no luxury, no unnecessary weight, only the essentials. The size of the Peel 50 is what makes it unforgettable. The entire vehicle was barely larger than a suitcase. It looked almost impossible to sit inside. The driver occupied nearly the entire cabin. There was just enough room for one person and a small amount of storage. In fact, the company advertised that it was large enough for one person and a shopping bag. That was the entire philosophy. Nothing more, nothing less. The 3-wheel design helped keep the vehicle extremely lightweight. With only one wheel at the rear and 2 at the front, the Peel 50 avoided the complexity and weight of a traditional 4-wheel automobile. The body was simple and compact. The engine was tiny. The construction was minimal. The result was a vehicle that weighed so little that a person could lift the rear end and physically rotate it. Imagine parking your car, getting out, and simply picking it up to point it in the opposite direction. That was the reality of the Peel 50. Inside, the experience was unlike any normal car. There was no traditional passenger seat, no large dashboard, no comfortable interior space. The driver sat almost directly inside the vehicle's shell. The controls were basic. Everything was designed around reducing size and weight. It wasn't trying to compete with luxury cars. It wasn't trying to impress anyone. It was simply a tiny machine designed to move one person. Performance was not the goal. The Peel 50 used a very small engine that provided enough power for city driving. Its top speed was modest, its acceleration was slow, but that was never the point. The Peel 50 wasn't built to dominate highways, it was built to navigate narrow streets where larger cars struggled. In crowded urban areas, its tiny dimensions were its greatest advantage. Despite its clever concept, the Peel 50 was never a major commercial success. Many buyers found it too unusual. Others worried about safety and practicality. Compared with normal automobiles, it looked almost ridiculous. A person could understand why someone would buy a small economy car, but a vehicle smaller than some motorcycles was a much harder idea to accept. Only a very small number were produced during the original production run. Because they were inexpensive and unusual, many were not preserved. Many simply disappeared over the decades. For years, the Peel 50 was almost forgotten. Then something unexpected happened. A new generation discovered this tiny machine and realized just how fascinating it was. The car gained worldwide attention after appearing on television, where its unbelievable size became the focus.
Seeing a person drive a vehicle that looked smaller than a shopping cart amazed audiences everywhere. Suddenly, the Peel 50 became a symbol of automotive curiosity. People who had never heard of it before couldn't stop talking about it. Today, the 1962 Peel 50 is one of the most recognizable microcars in history. It is famous not because it was fast, not because it was luxurious, not because it had advanced technology. It became famous because it challenged the definition of what a car could be. A car doesn't always need to be large. It doesn't always need powerful engines. Sometimes it can be nothing more than a tiny capsule designed to get one person from one place to another. Looking back, the Peel 50 wasn't a ridiculous idea. It was an extreme solution to a real problem. A tiny three-wheeled automobile created for crowded cities. A vehicle so small that you could move it without starting the engine. A machine barely bigger than a suitcase. The 1962 Peel 50 may be one of the strangest cars ever built, but it also proved that sometimes the smallest ideas can create the biggest reactions. And that's exactly why, more than 60 years later, seeing one still feels almost impossible.